And Chris, you've been in situations, whether it's a relationship, whether it's a job. You know, Reg and I have both been in this situation. Had a great thing going for a long time, but there comes a, you think there's a quarterback in this draft, you want to do that, do fine, but commit to the guy. Commit to him. Don't
fair.
Bring in 2 veterans and draft 2 rookies. What the fuck? What kind of commitment is that? Can't hedge. You can't hedge. You got to find the guy, you got to believe in him, and the whole organization has to get behind him. Have they done that for Shedeur? Hell no.
The Cleveland Browns just knocked off the Pittsburgh Steelers. Shedeur Sanders just delivered his best performance in a Browns uniform. And somehow, the biggest question surrounding this franchise isn't about the win. It's whether Jimmy Haslam in the front office in Berea will finally commit to the quarterback who just carried them to victory. Tony Rizzo absolutely unloaded on his show. And when I say unloaded, I mean he torched the entire organization for their complete inability to commit to any resembling a real quarterback plan. This goes beyond Shedeur Sanders. This is about a franchise that has spent 2 decades chasing mirages, hunting for saviors, and refusing to build anything that lasts. Let's dive into why Rizzo's frustration speaks for every single Browns fan who's watched this team cycle through quarterback after quarterback, waste draft pick after draft pick, and squander season after season.
26, 27, and 28. When we go into that new stadium at 29, the Browns have to be a playoff contender. You get a quarterback this year, it gives him 3 years.
Here's the reality check. The Browns are opening a brand new billion-dollar stadium in 2029. That's not just a facility, that's a statement of intent. That's supposed to signal the beginning of a new era, the rebirth of Cleveland football, the moment everything finally comes together. But you can't walk into that stadium with a 3-14 roster and a rookie quarterback taking his first NFL snap. You can't expect fans to fill the most expensive venue in the league when you're still trying to figure out who your starting quarterback is. Rizzo understands the math. 3 years, that's your window. You identify or draft your franchise quarterback this offseason. You develop him through 2026.
You start kicking that can down the road, you're not going in there with a rookie quarterback off a 3-14 season. That ain't gonna happen.
This is where Jimmy Haslam needs to pay attention. If he thinks he can wait another year, pass on Shedeur, chase some college prospect in the 2026 draft, and then begin the rebuild, he's going to open that new stadium to half-empty stands and a fan base that's checked out. The timeline doesn't allow for mistakes.
If you're going to make your big Messiah move, I'm now calling it the Messiah move. If you're gonna bring in some quarterback who you think is going to be the answer to all your troubles, which I think is an absolute joke, you better do it this offseason.
This might be the most critical point Rizzo drives home. The Browns suffer from a disease. It's called the Messiah complex. They keep believing there's some magical quarterback out there who's going to transform the franchise overnight. They thought it was Baker Mayfield. They thought it was Deshaun Watson. They've rotated through Tyrod Taylor, Jacoby Brissett, Joe Flacco, and now Shedeur Sanders and Dorian Thompson-Robinson. And every single time, they hesitate. They manufacture competition. They draft insurance policies. They refuse to fully commit.
You can't just throw guys out there. Let's try this guy. Let's try that guy. That's what the Browns are doing. That's why Andrew Berry's got to go.
Andrew Berry, the general manager who's supposed to be constructing this roster. And what has he actually built? A quarterback room that resembles a revolving door. Deshaun Watson stuck on a fully guaranteed contract that's strangling the franchise. DTR positioned as a developmental prospect who never developed. Shedeur Sanders thrown into the fire without the organizational commitment or infrastructure to succeed. This is textbook organizational malpractice. You cannot build a championship contender when you're constantly second-guessing the most important position on the field.
If we want to see Shedeur Sanders be his best, you got to commit to him. You got to get coaches that are going to coach him up. You got to get an offense that he's comfortable in, and you got to have a whole offseason committed.
Let's be clear about what real commitment looks like. It's not just declaring Shedeur is our guy at a press conference and then signing 3 veteran quarterbacks to push him. Commitment means designing the offense around his skill set. Commitment means hiring coaches who genuinely believe in him. Commitment means surrounding him with weapons, protection, and the patience to grow. Commitment means accepting that he'll throw interceptions, he'll struggle in some games, but you're staying the course regardless. The Detroit Lions committed to Jared Goff. Everyone questioned the decision. Goff had bombed in LA, right? Wrong. The Lions declared, "This is our quarterback." They constructed an offense around him, and now he's running one of the most explosive attacks in football. The San Francisco 49ers committed to Brock Purdy, a 7th-round pick, Mr. Irrelevant. They didn't panic after tough outings. They didn't sign veteran insurance. They said, "He's our starter," and they built a Super Bowl contender around him.
Yes, it's going to be very hard for me to want to give up because there's no doubt that they have glaring needs and they have a lot of them.
The Browns have roster holes everywhere. Offensive line, wide receiver depth, defensive backfield, edge rush. But none of that matters if you don't have your quarterback figured out. Right now, they have a young player who just beat the Pittsburgh Steelers, who's flashed elite arm talent, and who's practically begging the organization to believe in him.
Locker room.
In the building and everything, we've been pretty consistent with what we've been doing. The only difference is now we got the result we were supposed to get, So I don't think the difference between a win and loss is a couple of plays. It wasn't about how you're going about your business, how you're doing everything. Everybody's going about their business the same way. Everybody's extremely locked in, extremely focused on what they got to do. But today we just got the result we was looking for.
Listen to the way Shedeur carries himself. This kid understands what it takes. He's not making excuses. He's not pointing fingers after losses. He's saying the preparation was always there, the work was always there, and now the results are starting to come. This is quarterback maturity. This is real leadership. This is exactly what you want from your franchise signal caller.
What makes this game so significant is that you find yourself, and I'm serious here, guys, you find yourself in a spot where you go, is he unplayable?
No.
Is he?
Oh my God.
And
no.
that's the exact point. I think for a lot of Browns fans out there,
no, he fits right in.
You can't say he's unplayable.
Unplayable. That's the word that matters. Can you honestly watch Shedeur Sanders and say he doesn't belong on an NFL field? Can you watch him fire strikes in freezing temperatures against a playoff-caliber defense and say he's not good enough? You can't. And that's the dilemma for everyone pushing the Browns to draft Shedeur Sanders or Cam Ward or whoever the next hyped college quarterback is. Because Shedeur just proved he can play at this level. He proved he can win meaningful games. He proved he can lead this offense.
I can't say he's going to take off and have this tremendous future, but I don't think he's unplayable. So he's not your typical 5th-round guy.
5th round. That's where the Browns found him. That's incredible value. That's the type of draft pick championship organizations make. And now they're sitting on a potential franchise quarterback who cost them virtually nothing, and they're about to sabotage it by overthinking the entire situation.
I still am not convinced that Jimmy Haslam, don't get mad at me, okay? I think he's still waiting for Arch Manning.
And here's the elephant in the room. Jimmy Haslam, the owner who can't help but interfere. The owner who's desperate for a quarterback and willing to mortgage the future to get one.
And I know that the owner is desperate for a quarterback and is willing to move heaven and earth, obviously, as we've seen, to try to get somebody that he's convinced is going to be a great quarterback for his football team.
This is the Deshaun Watson trade repeating itself. Haslam becomes fixated on a name, a profile, a savior, and he forces his front office to execute a move that cripples the entire franchise. What if Haslam decides he wants Shedeur Sanders from Colorado? What if he decides Shedeur isn't glamorous enough, isn't big enough name? What if he decides to trade up in the draft and mortgage the future again? That's the nightmare scenario Browns fans fear, because Shedeur Sanders is already here. He's on the roster, he's cost-controlled, he's talented, and he's ready to be developed into something special. But if Haslam can't stay out of his own way, if he can't resist the temptation to chase the next shiny object, then this franchise will waste another 3 years spinning its wheels.
If you think there's a quarterback in this draft you want to do that to, fine, but commit to the guy. Commit to him.
That's
Don't
fair.
bring in 2 veterans and draft 2 rookies. What the fuck? What kind of commitment is that?
And this is where Tony Rizzo lays down the hammer, and he's completely right. You cannot build a championship team with an open quarterback competition. You cannot develop a young quarterback when he's constantly worried about who's behind him on the depth chart. Pick your quarterback, build the roster around him, give him every resource he needs to succeed. And if he doesn't work out, then you move on. But at least you gave him a legitimate opportunity. Mac Jones, Tyler Huntley, Malik Willis, these are the names being floated as potential competition for Shedeur Sanders, and it's insulting. It's organizational cowardice. It's the Browns telling their quarterback, we don't trust you enough to hand you the job, so we're going to hedge our investment. You know what happens when you operate it like that? You end up with a mediocre quarterback room, a confused offensive identity, and another lost season. And there's the ultimatum. Commit to Shedeur Sanders or let him walk. Stop wasting his development. Stop wasting the fans' patience. Stop wasting another season. The Browns have 3 years to get this right before they open that new stadium. 3 years to construct a playoff contender. 3 years to end the quarterback carousel that's defined this franchise for decades. Shedeur Sanders just handed them the blueprint. He showed up, he competed, he won. Now it's Jimmy Haslam and Andrew Berry's turn to show the same level of commitment. Make him QB1, build the roster around him, hand him the keys to the franchise, or let him go to an organization that will. Because if the Browns blow this opportunity, if they chase another savior and waste another 3 years, then that beautiful new stadium in 2029 is going to open to nothing but disappointment and empty seats.